PowerShell scripts can be used within ActionQ either as event sources or event responses. This video focuses on a use case where a PowerShell script calls a REST API that returns a list of to-do items. It detects new to-do items using a mirror table logic, and in response calls a PowerShell script to display a Windows notification as well as send an email. The logic for the event starts by running the PowerShell script, converting the result data to an internal data set, comparing that data set to a mirror table, and then converting the newly detected data to dynamic tokens that can be used within responses. In our case, the response includes calling a PowerShell script that shows a Windows notification. We are also sending an email, and it shows the new to-do items. There's an HTML table embedded within the email message, and that was afforded by this PowerShell HTML table that got harvested from the data that was returned by the PowerShell script. Here in the PowerShell script editor, we can see the event script, which calls a REST API, returning all the incomplete to-do items. If I run this, I get a long list. Given that the script will be running every few seconds within ActionQ, it would use the mirror table to reduce that list to show only newly introduced to-do items. I already ran the event using this script once in ActionQ, and that caused the mirror table for that event to populate with the same to-do list that we just saw. In ActionQ, I call this event PowerShell REST Demo. It is of type PS Mirror, similar to the database mirror event type. There's a separate video for that. It has a sleep multiplier by 5. The heartbeat is 3 seconds, so it gets checked every 15 seconds. The mirror connection name is a profile that points, in my case, to SQL Server, but you can connect to any database management system that accepts an ODBC connection. And here's the PowerShell script file, which we saw before. If I click on this button, if I click test, I can see that the data got retrieved. You can see the tokens that got populated based on the columns that were found in the result set from the PowerShell script. And I also have the PowerShell HTML table that I can use for embedding in email responses. If I click show only records not in the mirror table, I should get nothing because all these to-do items are already in the mirror table. So let's try that. And indeed it's saying showing no rows because all rows also exist in the mirror table. Now we're not responding with any SQL statements, although we could, but we are calling an executable. In our case, it's the PowerShell.exe, and we're passing some arguments to it. So let's have a look at that. These are required for security and permissions issues. Here we can see the path to the PowerShell script that actually shows a notification in the Windows status bar. And we can see that the toast title is new to do for user, and here is the user ID token. And the text of the notification is going to be the title token. So if I click preview, you can see an example of what that's going to look like. Here's the email message, and if I click the editor, I can see how I can create this message. I just embedded this token by double-clicking it like this, and if I preview, you can see that it shows me the data. So I'll close out of the design of this event, and I'll start the service. And as you can see, it is showing no response because all the to-do items are already in the mirror table. So I'll switch to the mirror table, and I'll delete 2 of the to-do items. Now that should cause ActionQ to detect those 2 items, and indeed we can see the responses here. And the email I received looks like this. I shifted the recording area to the bottom right corner of my desktop so we can see the Windows notification. I'll delete a to-do item belonging to user ID 10, so let's delete that. And we should see that detected pretty shortly in the Action Manager. And now we can see that we got the notification for that item in the status bar. Here's a review of how ActionQ automates this type of process.